Alright, let's talk about the motion sensor lab activity. This was the setup. You had a person walk either towards or away from the motion sensor, and they were going to be speeding up, slowing down, or moving at a constant velocity. Because we want to graph the different types of motion. We want to see what motion looks like on a graph. So you're tasked with filling in a table that looks like this. It's got 3 columns. We have this type of motion column, and we have the shape of a PVT. You have to graph it, and you want a description of the graph in that column. So how does it work? The first one, we witnessed an object moving away from the motion sensor in the positive direction slowly at a constant velocity. So they're going to move away from the motion sensor, they're going to go slow, and they weren't going to speed up or slow down. And their graph looked something like this. So as the motion sensor was going, it makes that ticking sound, so it's probably sounded like tick, 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 and they got a graph that looked like that. And then they needed a description of the graph. Now we can look at this graph and we can see that the slope doesn't change. The slope is constant throughout. We know that the slope is positive, so they're moving away from the motion sensor, and the slope is constant. The slope is not changing. So that's what they would write here in this area. The slope of the PVT graph is positive and constant, and that's all you got to do for each one of those. So let's do a different example. Let's say that our person is going to, instead of moving away from the motion sensor, they're going to move towards the motion sensor, and they're going to go fast. So like that. And they're not going to speed up, and they're not going to slow down. They're just going to move at a constant rate. Alright, let's graph that and see what it looks like. If they hit the motion sensor, let's first write down what the motion is going to be. So you'd need to write something like, let me get the font size right. You need to write something like person. Let me make that font size a little smaller so it fits. Person walked towards the motion sensor quickly, or you can say it better, at a constant fast velocity. Okay, so we've described the motion. This is the type of motion. And if we were to watch it take place on the graph, it would probably look something like this. Something just like that. And you could see that this slope, it's constant. They were moving at a constant velocity. So we know that this slope is negative and it's constant. So we would say something in this description box right here, the description of the graph. Excuse that. The slope, you can be really precise, of the position versus time graph is negative and constant. So we're just seeing what the slope does anytime we change the motion. So what if we did something, what if we walked towards the motion sensor but we sped up? So what's the best way to write that? Let's say that this person, well, my font didn't change, or my font size didn't change when I did that. The person walked toward the motion sensor and starting slow and speeding up and sped up. So we can kind of think what that graph might look like. Let's go back to our little drawing here. So what they're going to do this person, they're going to start slow, and then they're going to speed up at the end. So they start slow, and they speed up. So if you were to look at the motion sensor, it would produce a graph that would look like this. They're starting away, so you can see their starting distance. Let's say that this is at like 4 meters or something like that. They might have started, a good distance away from the motion sensor to start, and they started walking slow, and then they sped up. So you can kind of see how if I drew a tangent line, that means a line that kind of goes alongside of your graph. At this part, they're not moving very fast, but later in time, they are moving a lot faster. Let me write that a little neater. This slope is not steep, and this slope, this is very steep. And what that tells you is that that slope is increasing. Yeah, the slope is a negative slope. Yeah, it's a negative slope. Its general trend is in this direction. The magnitude is going to be negative, but that slope is not constant. It's changing, and in fact, it's increasing. It's getting from less steep to more steep. So you'd have to write that out. You'd want to write that out like this. The slope of the position versus time graph is negative and increasing. Boom. That would be a perfect explanation. Perfect explanation of that line. And that's how you're going to go about filling this one out. Filling out this data table here. So come up with different types of motion. Maybe the person walking towards the motion sensor fast and slowing down. Maybe the person walking away from the motion sensor and speeding up, or whatever you want to do. And then make sure to graph in this box. Write the explanation in this box and describe the graph in this box. And once you have that finished, turn that sucker in.